What if I told you that some of the world's most unforgettable cruise ports aren't the ones you see everybody raving about online, but rather are ones that sometimes get overlooked? In this episode of the Cruise Pod, we're gonna explore 5 lesser visited or lesser known cruise ports that deliver a whole lot of magic. I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. And today we are heading off the beaten path. And we're gonna talk about some great locations, and I'll share with you an island that honestly, for me, felt like I was stepping straight into the set of Jurassic Park. So let's dive right in. First is Key West, Florida. Man, I love Key West and people sleep on it. I actually just did a whole video just about Key West. You can find it here. And I hate the fact that a lot of times cruisers will skip itineraries that have Key West on it with the complaint of, well, it's just Florida. When I cruise, I want to see the world. I want to go to international destinations. And yeah, I guess that might be true, but Key West, it's different. This is a little island. It doesn't feel like it's in Florida. It doesn't feel like it's in the United States. It feels like its own quirky little world. This is one of the few domestic cruise ports that are included sometimes in Caribbean itineraries, and it may not be around for much longer. So if you want to explore the magic of Key West, you probably should do it soon, because there are local efforts to restrict or ban cruise ships entirely. So you might not be able to cruise there in the future, who knows? Now, one of the things I love about Key West is not just its quirkiness, but how easy it is to explore. I love Key West. I always find it a relaxing day because you don't have to spend money. You don't have to do a lot of planning. You simply walk off the ship. It's a small port. It's not overcrowded with thousands and thousands of cruisers and bunches of cruise ships. You walk off the ship and you're right there in Old Town. There's no tender boats, there's no overcrowding, there's no complicated logistics. And once you're there, just steps off the ship, you are in the charming streets of Key West, full of colorful, beautiful, old-timey, antique-looking houses, free-roaming roosters, and a lot of local flavor. Key West is known for its history, its food, its culture. There's a lot of spots you can get to, assuming you don't have mobility issues, within an easy walk, like the Ernest Hemingway home. I'm just there for the cats. You can taste test key lime pie. You can visit the southernmost point, which is a great photo op. There are a lot of things that you can do here within a short port of call visit, and you can also enjoy some pretty killer Cuban food as well. So for the eats, for the quirkiness, for the variety, for the fun stuff that you can do there, Key West is actually at the top of my favorites, even though it's in, Florida. There are also some quirky things. They have a historic cemetery with some humorous headstones. Judy Blume, my 80s child heart sings over this, has an independent bookstore there that you can pop into. And there's just lots of energy on Duval Street. There's just so much to do here. Robert the Doll lives in Key West. So check it out and don't discount it just because it's in Florida. Oh, and fun fact about Key West, did you know that it's actually closer to Havana, Cuba than it is the nearest Walmart, which happens to be located in Florida City, a good bit away. But yeah, Key West, it's cool, it's fun, it's quirky, I love it. Another hidden gem is St. Kitts. Now, St. Kitts is often overshadowed by its more famous Caribbean islands that surround it, but that's what makes it such a gem. St. Kitts is a perfect mix of natural beauty. There's lots of history, lots of forts, and a really friendly, laid-back local culture that hasn't been overrun or overly Americanized. Once you get off the cruise port, there's lots of shopping, there's lots of things to do. Now, on my most recent visit to St. Kitts, I did a tour. It was a little bit of a slower pace than I like, but it took us around the entire island. We got to see Romney Manor, where they have batik fabric demonstrations, which is a local generations-long way of making and decorating fabrics. We got to see the Brimstone Hill Fortress at the very highest peak of the island, so you get those beautiful views. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So those are just 2 standouts. Now, on another visit to St. Kitts, I wanted a little more adventure, and I did an ATV tour. So the great thing about this cruise port destination is if you want slow and leisurely and history, you got that. If you want adventure, you've got that. My ATV tour was really fun. It was really dirty. I got dust all over me. And it's also great for beach lovers. If you're craving beach time, there's South Frigate Bay Beach. That's the closest option. It's about a 10-minute drive from the port. And it's easy to get there and easy to get back to the ship before that return to ship time. Now, St. Kitts is part of a 2-island nation. It's actually St. Kitts and Nevis. And Nevis, I'm a big fan of Hamilton, the music and the musical, but Nevis is the birthplace of Alexander Hamilton, which is a fun little tidbit. So cruising to St. Kitts, you don't actually go to Nevis, but you can see it, which is really fun. Now, one important fact to know if you're visiting St. Kitts It is like some Caribbean island locations, it is illegal for civilians to wear camo. So if you got camo clothing, leave it on the ship. Don't wear it in St. Kitts. That's hats, backpacks, accessories, tops, shirts, bottoms, whatever. Leave the camo at home. Now, it is easy to navigate. While St. Kitts is not yet overly Americanized, like a lot of popular cruise port destinations, it's still easy to get around as an American. English is the official language, and the local currency is the Eastern Caribbean dollar, or the ECD, but most of your vendors are going to accept US currency. Another Caribbean gem is St. John's, Antigua. Antigua is a port that doesn't always get the love it deserves. Now, I don't love the downtown part of Antigua. I find it overly crowded, kind of dirty. The stores aren't very appealing. There are a lot of vendors kind of hassling cruisers. So when I visit Antigua, I avoid the downtown area. But this is a great spot for a beach day. And when it comes to those local vendors, my advice always, just don't make eye contact, firmly but politely say no thank you, and keep it moving. So get past those vendors and get your butt to the beach, and you're gonna have a great time. On a recent visit to Antigua, I went to Anna's on the Beach. This is a beachfront bar that is located on Dickinson Bay Beach. I just grabbed a taxi right off the cruise ship. There's a taxi stand. They usually put you in shared taxis, which I don't love. Prices are negotiable, always negotiate, but it was a quick taxi ride. There, I rented from a local vendor, also negotiated the price, the use of a lounger. I loved the beach. It was not crowded. It was a relaxing day. There were some vendors selling things like drinks and coconuts and some local foods, but they were not overly aggressive. So I think Antigua is a great spot for a beach day that is actually relaxing and not overcrowded. Now, if you're the adventurous type, Antigua also offers some great options like snorkeling, ziplining, and eco tours. But for me, finding a quiet beach, which there are lots of them here, I have them detailed in my Antigua port guide down below, but just having a nice beach day, relaxing and soaking up the beauty is the best part. Now, a couple things to know about Antigua. Like St. Kitts, you don't want to wear camo here because it's not allowed by civilians. Their currency also is the Eastern Caribbean dollar, but they also widely accept US currency. Just make sure that the currency is in good shape, it's not damaged, torn, or written on. Now, Antigua and Barbuda, kind of like St. Kitts and Nevis, are an island pair, island nation. It's Antigua and Barbuda. So this is an independent Commonwealth nation. English is the official language here, but you're gonna hear a lot of Spanish being used as well. And fun fact, if you're traveling with kiddos, the legal drinking age here is just 16. So if you're into that and you allow that, they could have their first legal drink in Antigua, possibly. Up next, Rosso, Dominica. Dominica is one of the most underrated cruise ports in the entire Caribbean, and it's one of the lesser visited ones. Not because there's anything bad, I think it's beautiful and magical, but it's just a little more off the beaten path. Now, it's lush, it's wild, it feels almost untouched by heavy tourism that you're gonna find in a lot of the overcrowded cruise port destinations. And when I visited, I already told you, it felt like I stepped on the scene of Jurassic Park, minus the dinosaurs. It was just so green and lush and gorgeous. Now, there is a downtown area here, but like Antigua, I don't find the downtown area to be particularly appealing. If you're visiting Dominica, you need to get out and explore the island and its natural beauty. The big thing here to visit are waterfalls. Trafalgar Falls is the big one. I personally wanted to go away from the crowds and off the beaten path, so I visited Spanny Falls. I booked a private driver for the day. He took us wherever we wanted to go. I said, take me to waterfalls that are not overcrowded, and he took us to Spanny, and it was amazing. I was with my boyfriend for a period of time. We were literally the only people there. It was one of the most romantic, like something out of a movie set experiences I have ever had. Now that water that day was pretty cold, so it wasn't quite as romantic as it could have been, but it was still a wonderful experience nonetheless. And as we were driving around, one area that he took us to snorkel was a small river. It was crystal clear. And there actually were a group of locals, a family having a cookout to celebrate some family milestone. And they invited us to join them. So it was really cool to actually eat fresh cooked, authentic food and to eat fresh fruit by the side of the river with some locals. It was truly an unforgettable experience for me. So if you do like swimming, there are lots of options here. The water's very clean, it's very pristine. There's T2 Gorge and there's Boiling Lake, which is one of the world's largest hot springs. Now be warned, you gotta be into some physical abilities to do Boiling Lake because this hike is a serious physical challenge and is not for the faint of heart. But whether you wanna kick back and take a private driver and just see everything with low effort, or you want a pretty strenuous hike, You can do it all in Dominica. Now, if you're visiting Dominica, here are some important things to know. Now, the great thing here is like St. Kitts and like Antigua, obviously Key West, the official language is English. You will hear Dominican Creole that is widely spoken, but everyone's gonna be fluent in English that you're gonna encounter as a tourist. The currency here also is that Eastern Caribbean dollar, but again, most of the vendors will take US dollars. Just make sure they're not damaged. Fun fact about Dominica, it's nicknamed the Nature Island. Not surprisingly, because it truly lives up to that name. From those hot springs to the waterfalls, there are even volcanic landscapes. It is truly a paradise. It is absolutely gorgeous. Another thing to note though, because this is a more rustic cruise port destination, rideshare services like Uber are not available here. So if you do want to get out and see the island, which I strongly recommend if you're taking a cruise here, you can't just depend on Uber. So you want to arrange transportation or book an excursion either independently or through the cruise line if you're planning a visit here. And finally, the cruise port destination of these 5 that I've most recently been to, which is Bonaire. Now, this is the lost child of the ABC Islands trifecta. ABC Islands are Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. A lot of cruise itineraries visit Aruba and Curacao, but they skip out on Bonaire. And that was my experience for a really long time. I've been to Aruba and Curacao a few times, but somehow always missed Bonaire. And I recently got to go for the first time, and it was fantastic. By the way, I have a whole video port guide about Bonaire. I'll share that with you if you want to check it out. Now, Bonaire is known for snorkeling and diving. This is truly the thing to do here. And during my visit, I booked a private boat charter. I always talk about how amazing private drivers are, but private boat charters are pretty awesome too. And get this, it actually cost us less for my group of 3 to charter out the small boat for the whole day than it was to go through a cruise line excursion where we would have been herded like cattle with up to 50 other people like on a big boat. So we booked this private boat charter. I'll drop my recommended driver down below for the charter. And we went to Klein Bonaire, and that is the big attraction in Bonaire. So Klein Bonaire is also known as Little Bonaire, and it is a tiny uninhabited island. And I'm not talking about an island like Key West, which is technically an island, or Half Moon Cay in the Bahamas, or even Nassau. This is a legit island. It is rustic. There are no bathrooms or facilities here. There's not beach bars. So you have to bring everything with you. But I will tell you, it's an amazing experience. This is some of the clearest water I've ever seen. That sand was some of the cleanest and softest white sand I have ever seen. And I've been to almost every Caribbean island. I have to say the snorkeling was probably the best I've ever experienced. And again, I've snorkeled literally all over the world. And it wasn't just the fish, but the coral. The coral here is really, really cool. Now, another thing I like about Bonaire is that unlike some of the other destinations we talked about, their downtown area is actually really nice. It's small, but it's charming. And there is a little straw market where locals are selling their handcrafted goods. And I'm not an expert, but they actually looked handmade, not mass-produced, brought in from China, pretending like they're handmade, like you see in some cruise port destinations like Nassau. I love Nassau, but there's some scammers and hustlers in the straw markets there. But it's legitimate handmade souvenirs. And there's a really great gelato shop, there's some coffee shops, there's a really great beach bar. There are a lot of things in Bonaire. It feels very clean, it feels very friendly and hospitable, and it feels very safe. Now, Bonaire is another location where you're not gonna have an issue with people being fluent in English, but the cool thing about Bonaire is that one of their official languages is Papiamento, which I find fascinating because it's a hybrid of English, Dutch, Spanish, Portuguese, and there are some other influences in there as well. So you're picking up bits of different languages, and it's actually one language. It's so fascinating to me. Bonaire uses the US dollar, so you don't have to exchange currency or worry about that. Now, a fun fact about Bonaire is that it's technically part of South America, not North America, although it's often grouped with the Caribbean islands. Another great thing about Bonaire is that it's outside of that hurricane belt. So if you're taking a cruise during hurricane season, which whether you realize it or not, hurricane season is more than half the year, this is a reliable destination even during hurricane season. Now, if you're heading to Klein Bonaire or Little Bonaire, remember it's totally undeveloped, so you gotta bring everything with you. That's the great thing about having a private boat charter. It's easier to bring stuff with you. Make sure you bring your drinks, your snacks. Our private boat charter actually provided us with a cooler filled with complimentary water, beer, soda, things like that. And they even gave us fresh watermelon, which was really, really nice. But you gotta BYOB, you gotta bring it all yourself. But you can't beat that rustic charm that you're gonna find at Little Bonaire. And as a whole, Bonaire is a fantastic cruise port destination. So these are 5 cruise ports that you don't always hear about. I don't talk about them very often because they are kind of these ones that fly under the radar. But I love them all, and they offer some of the richest, most authentic, and most memorable experiences that I've found anywhere at sea. So I want to know what you think about these 5 spots. Have you been? What did you think? And what are your personal hidden gems in the cruise world that people don't talk about, but they should? Drop them below in the comments. Thanks for joining me, and as always, visit my website, profmelissa.com, for free port guides, resources, and so much more. Happy sailing!